everyone. Today we're going to work on number 4, radical notes, multiplying radicals. And to start with that, we're just going to review simplifying radical expressions. Okay, so let's look at this number 1 right here. 180. So we don't want to have the square root of 180. That's really big. So we want to break it down as much as we can. So we're going to start by reviewing our prime numbers. So if I want prime numbers, 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. There's a whole lot more prime numbers other than the ones that are listed, but we really won't need the ones that are beyond that 13. Remember, prime numbers are anything that's divided by 1 and itself. So like 2, you can divide 2 by 2, or you can divide it by 1, but you can't divide it by anything else. Same with all those other numbers there. Okay, so let's look at number 1. I'm looking at 180, and I want to break that up. Okay, 180, because it ends in a 0, it's an even number, so I'm going to start with that 2. And I'm going to say 2 and 90. Okay, 90 again is even because of that 0 at the end. So I'm going to say 2 and 45. Okay, 45 is odd, so I'm going to try with my first odd number, which is a 3. And that actually works, and it's going to be 3 and 15. If 3 didn't work, then try your 5. If 5 doesn't work, then try your 7. Okay, and then 15, we're going to have 3 and 5. Okay, because I ended at 5, and 5 is a prime number, I can take all of those and find my pairs. So I have a pair of 2s and a pair of 3s. Okay. Another way to look at it is if these were under a radical, you had 2 times 2 times 3 times 3, and then a 5. We have this 5 right here. And the pair theory is going to be the same. I have a pair of 2s and a pair of 3s. Our pairs come out front, and you multiply them together. So I have a 2 times a 3 with the square root of 5. 2 times 3 is 6 with the square root of 5. Okay? If I'm going to use this method right here, that's what that would look like. But kind of a faster method, I think, is the one that we have on the left that I already did. I have a 2 right here, and I have a 3 right here. Remember, those come out as 1. So this is 1, 2, and this is 1, 3, and you're going to multiply them together. So that's going to give you a 6, and then you have that leftover 5, so 6 square root 5. So notice you get the exact same answer. I just feel like the left side is a little bit less work, less writing, because I'm not rewriting something out. But if you want to do it like how we did it in black over on the right side, you can do it like that too. They're both going to give you the same answer. But I'll probably from here on out just do that, the version in the red on the left that we did. Okay? So now let's do that same thing with 108. Again, 108 is a pretty big number, so I know I can break that down. And then you have x to the 7th. Because of that x to the 7th, I'm just going to go ahead and start and write 7 x's. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those are my x's, and then I'm going to start breaking 108 up. Okay, so if I take 108 and I divide it by 2, I get 54. 54 is even, so I'm going to say 2 and 27. 27 is odd, so I'm going to say 3 and 9. And 9 is odd, so I'm going to say 3 and 3. Okay, now I'm going to do it the fast method and find my pairs. So I have a pair of 2s, I have a pair of 3s, and then I have this leftover 3 that's going to go in the radical. Okay, so I'm going to start with that, but I'm also, before I write anything, I'm also going to start with my pairs over here. I have a pair of 2s, or 2 x's right there. I have a pair of x's right there and a pair of x's right here. All my pairs come out front. So I have this 2 and this 3, and we're going to multiply those together, and I get 6. And then I'm going to count my pairs of x's. I have 3 pairs of x's, so I'm going to say x to the 3rd. Okay? Then whatever's left over goes in my radical. So under my radical, under my 108, I still had that 3 that was not a pair, so my 3 is going to go right there. And then I still have one of those x's. So this is going to be 6x to the 3rd with the square root of 3x. Okay, so that is how we simplify those ones right there. And now this is just a reminder of how you simplify if you're adding and subtracting. Okay, so remember when you simplify, when you add and subtract, first you look to see if you can break anything down. So I have a 6 and a 10 under my radical. If I were to break that 6 up, I would get a 2 and a 3. and those don't make a pair, so I can't break that one up. So let's try to break your 10 up. So if I were to break that 10 up, I get a 2 and a 5. Again, those don't have pairs, so we can't break those up. So we're just going to leave them just as they are. Okay, so now we're just going to go and combine our like terms. They're like terms if they have the same radical. So I have a radical 6 and I have a radical 6. So I can take what's in front. In front of this first one is a 4. And in front of this one is a -3 or -3. So I'm going to just read it like what it says there. So I'm going to take that 4 and I'm going to subtract 3. And I get 1 with a square root of 6. Okay, so then I did this and I did this. Those are gone. So the only thing I have left is that -2 square root 10. I can't combine that with anything, so I'm just going to put that on the end. -2 square root 10. Okay, remember that 1 in front of your square root 6? You can have, but you don't have to have. Another way I could write this could just be the square root of 6 minus 2 square root 10. Okay, both of those answers would be acceptable. Okay, so let's look at number 4. So just like how we tried on number 3 to break them up, and we couldn't on number 3, when I do number 4, we can break these up. 27 is an odd number, so I'm going to say 3 and 9. And 9 is also an odd number, so I'm going to say 3 and 3. And I just divided all those out. Okay? So now I'm going to take my pair. So I have this pair of 3s, which are going to come out as 1, 3. And you have to multiply that by what's in front right there. Okay, so my 6 square root 27 is now going to become an 18. 3 times 6 gives me that 18. And then I have a square root of that 3 left over. Okay, so now let's do our 12. So I'm going to break that 12 up. I get 2 and 6 and 2 and 3. And let's find our pairs. So I have a pair of 2s. So those are going to come out as 1, 2. And I'm going to multiply it by that 8. So 2 times 8 is going to give me a 16. Notice in the middle right here is addition. So I'm going to say add right here. So I'm going to say plus, and then I'm going to do that 2 times 8, which gives me that 16. And then I have this leftover 3 right here. So that's what's going to go under my radical, a leftover 3. Okay, and then we have 2 square root 75. So we need to break that one up. So I'm going to go ahead, and 75 is an odd number, so I'm going to start with a 3, and that actually works. I get 3 and 25, and then 25 is that 5 and that 5. Okay, so those 5s are going to be my pair, and then I'm going to take those 5s, they're going to come out as 1, 5, and I'm going to multiply it by that 2. Okay, before I do anything, I should see what operation I'm going to use, and it's plus. So I'm going to go ahead and add an addition right here before I put that 10 in there. Okay, so 5 times 2 is 10. And then I still have this leftover 3, so I'm going to use the square root of 3. Okay, so I'm not quite done until I combine all my like terms. My like terms are if I have the same radical. So I have a square root of 3, a square root of 3, and a square root of 3. So I can combine everything that's in front. So if I take this 18, if I take this 18 and this 16 and this 10, I get 44. 18 plus 16 plus 10 is going to give me a 44, and then that square root 3 stays the same. Okay, so now let's go on to what we're doing today. So that was just a review of simplifying and adding and subtracting radical expressions. Now we're going to multiply radical expressions. So when you multiply radical expressions, you're going to multiply the coefficients outside the radical. So that means the number that is outside of every radical, you multiply those together. Okay? And then you're going to multiply the radicands, and the radicands are what's inside or underneath the radical together. And then finally, you're going to simplify. Okay, so let's try one of these. So I have the square root of 2 and the square root of 5. If there's no number out front, it's really a 1. So technically, I have 1 times 1, which is going to give me a 1. And then I'm going to multiply what's inside my radical. So inside, I have a square root of 2 and a square root of 5. Those are going to give me a square root of 10. Whoops. Okay, so I have 1 square root 10. I could also write it like this, square root 10. Okay, so either one of those would work. But if I were going to break that 10 up, I would get a 2 and a 5, which do not have a pair. 2 and a 5 are not pairs. So I'm just going to leave it as the square root of 10 for my final answer. Okay, so let's try number 6 using the same method. I'm going to multiply my outside first. This one has outside numbers. I have a 4 and I have a 6. So I'm going to multiply my 4 times my 6 and I get 24. And once I multiply my 4 times my 6, then I'm going to multiply what's inside. I have a 3 times a 2, and that's going to give me a 6. So I'm going to do a square root of 6. I'm going to try to break that square root of 6 up, and I get a 2 and a 3. There are no pairs, so I know that's just going to be my final answer because they don't have pairs. So this is just going to be my final answer. Let's try flipping to the back page. Okay, and working on number 7 with the same method. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is multiply everything that's outside my radical. So I'm going to start with this. I have a 2. There's no number in front of this 2, so it's actually a 1. So I'm going to multiply it by 1, which is obviously just going to stay at 2, so that's not a big deal. And I have a 4, so I can kind of ignore that 1. 2 times 4 is going to give me an 8. Okay, and then what's under my radical I'm going to multiply. So I have a 3, I have a 2, and I have a 3. So if I take 3 times 2, that's going to give me 6. And then if I take 6 times 3, that's going to give me an 18. So I have 8 square root 18. Okay, when I think of 18, that's a pretty big number. So I'm guessing, and it's not one of the prime numbers that I found, so I'm guessing I can probably break it down and get some pairs. So if I take 18 and divide it by 2, I get 2 and 9. And 9, I get 3 and 3. Well, right away, I see I have a pair of 3s, which is going to come out front as 1 3, and you're going to multiply it by that 8. So 3 times 8 is going to give me a 24. And then I still have this left over 2, so it's going to be the square root of 2. And 2 you obviously can't break down anymore because you already broke all those down and found that to be a prime number. So 24 square root 2 would be our final answer. Okay, let's do the same thing with number 8. First, I'm going to take my outside and multiply them together. So I have a negative 6. Don't forget that negative. And a 4. That's going to give me a negative 24. And now I'm going to do my insides. So I have a 5 and a 15. If I take 5 and I multiply it by 15, it's going to go under the radical as 75. Okay, 75 is not in our prime number list, so I'm going to break it up, and I get 3 and 25 and 5 and 5. Okay, now that I have those, I'm going to take my pair. I'm going to multiply that 1 5 times the 24. Remember, it's coming out as 1. I'm going to multiply it by the negative 24. Sorry, not just 24, but negative 24. And that's going to give me a negative 60. Nope, I lied to you. That is not a negative 60. That's actually negative 120. So I'm going to take that negative 120, and I got that from taking this 1 5 and multiplying it by that negative 24. And then when I look, I still have this leftover 3. That's a prime number. So that one is going to go in my radical as a leftover 3. So negative 20 times the square root of 3. Okay, let's look at number 9. Okay, we're going to do the same thing with number 9. I'm going to start at the front, and I have a 3 times whatever would be there. It would be a 1, so that's not going to change my 3, times my 2. So 3 times 2 is going to give me a 6. And then I'm going to take what's inside my radical. So I have a 12, I have a 6, and I have a 3. If I take 12 times 6 times 3, I get 200. Oops, that's not what I want. I get 216, and then I'm going to break up that 216. It's even, so I'm going to divide it by 2. So I get 2 and 108. 108 is even, so I'm going to say 2 and 54. 54 is even, so I'm going to say 2 and 27. 27 is odd, so I'm going to say 3 and 9. And finally, 3 and 3. Okay, so when I look at those, I'm going to find my pairs. I have a pair of 2s and a pair of 3s. Okay, so I'm going to take my 1, 2 and my 1, 3. 2 times 3 is 6. So both of those together. So this is going to be a 2. This is going to be a 3. The first thing I'm going to do is multiply those together, and that's going to give me my 6. Then I'm going to take this 6 and multiply it to that 6. So 6 times 6 is going to give me a 36. So 36 is going to go outside my radical. And then I'm going to look and see what I have left. I have this 2 left, and I have this 3 left. 2 times 3 is going to give me a 6, so that's going to go underneath my radical. So 36 with the square root of 6. Okay, let's look at our last one, number 10. Okay, so I have negative 3 on the outside. So I'm going to keep that negative 3. I'm going to multiply whatever's on the outside here. There's nothing there, so it's just going to stay at negative 3. There's actually a 1 there, so 1 times negative 3 is going to give me that negative 3. So negative 3 is going on the outside. And then I'm going to multiply what's under my radical. So I'm going to take this and multiply it by that. 18 times 2 is going to give me a 36. So I'm going to have a square root of 36. And then 36 I can break up. So 36, I'm going to say 2 and 18. 18, I'm going to say 2 and 9. And 9, I'm going to say 3 and 3. Okay, so when I look at these, I have a pair of 3s. And I have a pair of 2s. So this is going to come out as a 2. This is going to come out as a 3. First thing I'm going to do is multiply those together. That's going to give me a 6. And then I'm going to take that 6 and multiply it with that negative 3. So 6 times negative 3 is going to give me a negative 18. Okay, when I look, I don't have anything left under my radical, so I don't have to worry about those ones at all. It's just my final answer is just going to be that negative 18 without that other radical. All right, you have everything you need to complete your assignment for number 4.